How's it going, everyone? I'm Josh from Elder Drunken Highlander, and I'm coming to you with a crazy color-shifted pile of highly optimized jank for you guys to ball out with. This time around, the deck is Jeskai Elfball. Yep, it's Elfball without the colors that Elfball uses to do the Elfball thing. It still works great though, trust me. There are plenty of elves to use. I had to cut a bunch, actually. In this deck, we'll be doing the true Elfball thing of making our elves tap for mana, untapping them, and re-tapping them to cast spells that pump them, and then swinging in for lethal with an army of big bad, unstoppable elves. Elfball, baby! Yeah! Before I rant about these mother flippa elves, I just want to quickly promote a charity initiative that I'm helping to put on. On October 2nd, some other amazing creators and myself will be putting on a charity livestream in support of the Brigade Alliance, which is a charity that provides abortion access to those in need. It is going to be 8 hours of Commander charity goodness with wonderful guests starting at noon Eastern Time and going all the way until 8 p.m. also Eastern Time. I slapped a picture of time zones up on the screen to make it super easy for you guys to figure out if you can attend. Our last charity stream in support of humanitarian efforts in Ukraine raised nearly $5,000 US, and I know we can do even better than that this time. Plus, I'll be on stream for the entirety of the 8-hour period hanging out and making custom treasure tokens like these ones on the screen for people who donate. So, if you want a chance to win one of the tokens or one of the other amazing prizes we are offering, make sure that you show up and help out with some donations. Elder Drunken Highlander will also be donating all of our Patreon earnings from this summer to get the ball rolling too. Hope to see you all there making a difference. Okay, now for the deck. This is an Elfball deck. That means we play elves, tap them for mana, pump them, and then swing out for lethal. Except, instead of using Elf Lords and Crater Hoof and Quirion Ranger or Wirewood Symbiote, we get a bit creative. You see, all those cards are green. Let's break the Elfball deck down piece by piece so you can see how this monstrosity works. And yes, it does work. I've been playing this deck for months now, and I even brought it to Tier 1 Con in Punt City as a casual deck. If you watch closely in the vlogs, you can see me playing it. This deck is smooth, fun to play, has entertaining and unique play patterns, and most importantly, can win games rather handily. Let's start our breakdown with the important part, the elves. So it turns out there are a lot more elves in these colors than I expected, largely due to Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, New Capenna, and Battle for Baldur's Gate. The D&D sets have given us cool elves in all colors, and New Capenna gave us a pretty sweet suite of white-aligned elves that have useful abilities. Combine this with a few elves that have popped up in other colors over the years, and we have ourselves a pretty nice creature package. We also have Sakashima to copy our elves and help us get even more value from the good ones. Mira, Delina, and Baloth Baratil are all great targets for Wakasaka, but the best ones aren't actually legendary. Rumor Gatherer is a great card to copy, and if you have more than one, you can call it Tumor Gatherer. I'll see myself out. We also have some worthy ETBs with Aberrant Mind Sorcerer and CDH staple Winter Eladrin, making for solid copy targets. The best one by far, though, is the absolute powerhouse that is Tomb of Horrors Adventurer. Let me ask you, dear viewers, what happens if you cast a 1-mana cantrip as your first spell for the turn, and then cast Sakashima as your second spell? 3 Tomb of Horrors Adventurers. That's what fucking happens. That means you're basically guaranteed to complete the dungeon, and also, the second spell you cast each turn gets copied 3 times. Plus, since now you have multiple Sakashimas, you can copy your elves to your heart's content. 3 extra Niras is really fucking fun, I can tell you from experience. 3 extra Roving Harper? Kinda nutty too. The absolute coolest thing to do with this combo, though, is to use your first spell to somehow bounce your Sakashima, and then recast it again as your second spell. This gets you 4 more Sakashimas, 4 initiative triggers, and means that the next time you copy a spell, it happens 6 fucking times. 6 times! You don't just gotta copy elves, too. I actually prefer to copy our support enchantments, which is the next section of this deck tech. 4 Kindred Discovery is absolutely nutso, I can tell you firsthand. 4 Jeskai Ascendancy or 4 Whirlwind of Thought is basically GG too. Anyways, let's get to those enchantments and other support cards that allow us to pretend that we're playing green. Right. First, let's start with an Elfball staple, Glimpse of Nature. This card is a really efficient way to draw your deck in green. Elfball decks also sometimes use stuff like Beast Whisperer or the Great Hinge, but again, they're green. Our options without green are a bit limited. There's a Vanquisher's Banner, I guess, but for 5 mana, I would hope my continuous draw effects pack a little more punch. This deck uses Kindred Discovery as its elf draw enabler, since it also rewards us for attacking with them. As a secondary draw effect, we also have Whirlwind of Thought, which doesn't draw us cards for our elves, but does draw us cards for our cantrips, which we'll look into more later. Now that we're drawing cards, when we cast our elves, we need to make them tap for mana. We can have a few ways of doing this, but the elfiest one is by far the Sorcerer class. This lets our elves tap for red and blue mana that can only be spent on instants and sorceries and the class level, which doesn't really matter. Since we have a lot of cantrips, this is a non-issue. It is also possible to use Doubling Cube to convert this mana into mana for elves, but I found in practice that adding the extra step was just too clunky. We can also equip an elf with Paradise Mantle, which literally just lets it tap for mana. Super easy. Next, we have Honorary Elf Cultivator's Caravan, which can be crewed by elves and features elves in the art, so I feel like it's close enough flavor-wise. Turning this into a creature allows us to tap for mana as well. Last, but not least, we can turn one of our mana rocks into a creature and tap that using the ever-versatile Majestic Metamorphosis. Not very elfy, I know, but I felt it was a closer flavor fit than Karn or Toymaker, and I needed one more mana-producing effect. Just an aside, we do have Faceless Haven and Mutavault as extra elves that can tap for mana, but the mana they produce isn't really that helpful. Colorless mana doesn't help cast cantrips and doesn't help cast the important parts of our elves. Now I know what you're thinking, Josh, that's like 2 mana total from all this setup. This ain't worth it. And to that I say, no you. I also say that it's going to make sense once you see the third and final part of our Elfball combo. This card is a favorite of mine and I absolutely love jamming it. It's Jeskai Ascendancy, the Elfballiest non-green card of all time. It does everything an elf could want. It untaps our mana producers, it pumps the team and allows for big elfy swings, and it gives us enough card selection to hopefully chain cantrips for long enough to make some big elves and kill a player or 3. I'm actually so giddy to play this combo here because I love Ascendancy, but often feel like it's in a weird place where it's too strong for casual and too weak for CEDH. But when you stick it in some optimized jank, let me tell you, it's just right. So you play elves, resolve a draw engine, find a way for them to produce mana, slap down Jeskai Ascendancy, and then spam cast cantrips and elves until you just can't boogie no more. Simple, effective, easy. But also, this is an Elder Drunken Highlander build, so you know we just can't stop there. We gotta get combo looted and make this somehow even more absurdly complicated. Look, the weirder the Storm combo is, the more likely your opponents will be entertained rather than annoyed when you tap and untap your elves for 6 minutes and then say, so I win? Let's get convoluted and break down this deck's infinite combos. First off, we have a classic Ascendancy combo straight from competitive Eternal formats. Vanishing Knack and Retraction Helix are super fun removal spells that are close enough to the fight mechanic that they could be green cards if you get really drunk and squint at them for a bit. This makes them great for Elfball for flavor reasons, but they can also be used on our own Soul Ring to create an infinite loop of Jeskai Ascendancy. Tap an elf to bounce the ring, spend 1 mana on the ring. Ascend and untap your bouncy elf. Tap your Soul Ring for 2, tap your elf to bounce it. Then spend 1 of your 2 mana to recast the ring. This triggers Ascendancy and starts our loop over again. Repeat this process until you have at least 7 extra mana and enough elf power to kill the table. Then, filter your deck until you get Cyclonic Rift and swing out for lethal. Secondly, we have everybody's favorite buyback cards, Mystic Speculation and Haze of Rage. These are actually everyone's second and third favorite buyback spells after Capsize, which was excluded from this build. Capsize, I feel, is too much of an unfair card for this deck, what with all the non-infinite mana generation and spam casting, and also winning with Capsize is not winning with elves. Anyway, we like Mystic Speculation as it is essentially a cantrip, and we like Haze of Rage because it allows us to pump our elves and kill people really effectively without having to go infinite. That being said, we're gonna use it to go infinite here. Shrug emoji. It's so easy. All you need is Sorcerer class, Ascendancy, and enough mana to pay for the spell and its buyback. Then just pop off and win when you're ready. The Ascendancy draw is a May, so you can take your time. And that's basically how you win. In the early game, you're going to want to get some mana rocks down and then some elves and focus on casting your cantrips and finding a good elf for Sakashima to copy. In the meantime, while you bide your time and assemble some kind of Ascendancy loop. Or just beat everyone to death with elves and Haze of Rage. That's a good way to go too. Notable inclusions. These are the cards that I didn't get to talk about yet, or have more to say about, or just really like. Nira Wild Mage. Casting a cantrip and getting an elf is a really good way to play, and also a really fun way to play. Things get truly wild with 2 of her. Boss's Chauffeur. This is our Go Wide card that helps us go wide. Great with Haze of Rage. Half-Elf Monk. It's hilarious to me how many times I've completely stonewalled somebody's combat-focused deck with this thing. LMAO. Your temple is under attack. Our fabulous Discord moderator Banks told me about this gem. It draws me cards when I need it and saves me from getting blown out by Wrath of God 2. It has literally won me games. Wild Research. This card finds literally all the pieces of our combo on its own, and thanks to Underworld Breach and Sabine's Reclamation, we really don't give a crap if we discard our pieces or not. This card gets it all for us, so good. Notable Exclusions. These are cards that just barely didn't make the cut for me, but you might want to consider them yourself if you make this deck on your own. Vanquisher's Banner. I really wanted to slot for this card, but I don't think it does enough in this deck for the mana. Drawing 1 card per cast on a 5-mana permanent that is easy to destroy when we only have like 19 elves to begin with, it's kind of mid. Speaking of which, the other elves. I left out Benny Brax, the 3-mana 2/2 with Reach, all the Changelings, and some other gems that could be good here. I just felt like I wanted cantrips to find my good elves more than I wanted bad elves to help them out. Well, some of my elves are still kind of bad, so I guess worser elves? Obelisk of Urd, Adaptive Automaton, Brass Herald, etc. First of all, Adaptive Automaton is not really an elf. Second of all, I felt like these tribal helpers don't do enough for our pseudo-storm game plan to warrant a slot over a cantrip. More buyback. This ain't a buyback deck. I kept the cantrip and the red Craterhoof Behemoth because they're elfy, that's it. More counterspells. Bro, Elfball doesn't run counterspells. I'm on Arcane Denial as a way to stop myself from dying to counter this or die combos in Commanders, and I feel super guilty about that even. Every day, I stray closer to cutting it for Teferi's Protection or some other heroic intervention approximation. So that's it. That's the entire pile of highly optimized jank. Jeskai Elfball, the coolest and fairest Ascendancy deck you'll ever have the pleasure of playing against. Oh, and Bruce Tarl is here too. We don't really talk about Bruce though. If you want to see a brief snippet of me playing the deck, you can check out our Punt City vlog where I'm playing the deck for a small part of the video. You can also peep the deck list in the video description. I also just want to mention again our October 2nd live stream. It's going to be a real fun time, so make sure that you're there and make sure that you're ready to help do some good. I can't wait personally. I hope I get to make all of you custom treasure tokens. Info and links are in the description. And if you want to follow us on other platforms, you can also check the description for links to our Twitter, Discord server, and other relevant social media links. Post a lot on Twitter, and we all brew crazy decks like this one on our Discord, so come down if you're down to clown, or whatever. As always, we really appreciate your viewership and engagement. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all on October 2nd. Stay janky, my friends.